The M1 Max MacBook Pro has been the best laptop I have ever used for music production. I've been using it since it came out in 2021, and I haven't had the need to upgrade since because it's been working pretty much flawlessly. That being said, I got my hands on the brand new M4 Max MacBook Pro in this beautiful space black colorway. Almost fully spec'd out. This is a loaner unit from Apple themselves. Your boy's moving up in the world. And in this video, I'm gonna push it to its limits, if it has any, compare it to my M1 Max, and then I will decide if it is worth the upgrade. Let's start with the specs. So with this model, we got the 14-inch. I'm a 14-incher. Well, like I prefer the smaller screen than the 16-inch. That's all. And then we got the nano texture display, which is new for the MacBook Pro. My prior experience with the nano texture display was with this studio display I have right here. And honestly, I went with the regular one just because to my eyes, it just looked clearer when I was checking it out in the Apple store. But I will say on a MacBook, it makes a lot of sense because you're probably taking this places. It just kind of has a bit of a matte finish and it looks really good. Like you can just see the glare on my M1 Max. And on this one, like, no glare really, honestly. There's hardly any glare whatsoever. So I think that's actually gonna be clutch for a laptop. Now, I'll be honest, for the most part, my laptop is in clamshell mode, under my desk, and I'm using the studio display, so not a big deal for me. But I do occasionally work outside and stuff like that, so it should come in handy. Next up, chip processor. We got the M4 Max chip with the 16-core CPU, 40-core GPU, and 16-core neural engine. That's definitely overkill, especially for producers. But the thing is, on my M1 Max, I have 64 gigs of RAM on that. The reason why I have 64 gigs of RAM is because I do a lot of video editing. So that's the perspective I'm probably going to be coming from for the rest of this video as a producer who also does video editing. But towards the end, I'll give you tips on what type of creator slash producer you may be and what you should probably pick up. But yeah, I mentioned that because I have 64 gigs of RAM on the M1 Max, and in order to get 64 on this, you have to upgrade to the 16-core CPU in order to get that 65 gigabytes of unified memory. Now, this one actually has 128 gigabytes of unified memory, which is definitely overkill for my needs, but I'm sure it'll come in handy when it comes to video editing and rendering and all that kind of stuff that I do as well. And last but not least, we got 4 terabytes of storage. When I was kind of speccing this out myself, I'm like, oh, should I do 8 terabytes? I am not an external hard drive guy. I love having everything right on the computer. I use a software called Backblaze that is backing up all the time. That's clutch for me as far as backups go. So I have no problem having every single part of my life or whatever on this computer. Now, as far as the video files that start to get too big, I offload them onto external drives, but that's just archival stuff. 9 out of 10, I don't even use any of that stuff. It's just to free up space here. So I'm very satisfied with 4 terabytes. I mean, on my M1 Max, I have to delete stuff at least maybe like once every 2 to 3 months. I got to delete a bunch of stuff, offload it to a hard drive or something like that. That's me. I know a lot of people will just stick with 1 terabyte of storage and just use externals. If that's you, save that money because Apple definitely taxes when it comes to the storage upgrades. And as far as direct comparisons of the CPU and graphics and all that kind of stuff to the M1 Max, the M1 Max I believe has like 10 cores where this has 16. And as far as the GPU, this has 40, and I believe the M1 Max has 32. Anyway, those are the specs. Now let's get into my first impressions because I have been using it for a few days. I haven't done that much production with it because a lot of the time has been like updating plugins and this and that, but I have ran through it enough to know that all my plugins are compatible and all that kind of stuff. One of the first cool things to note right off the bat is these new USB-C ports are actually Thunderbolt 5. I'm not the guy with all the specs on the gigabits and the speeds and whatnot, but I will say I migrated my M1 Max, which is 4 terabytes that are nearly full, to the M4 Max using Apple's expensive Thunderbolt cable, and it took only 2 hours, bro. If you're familiar with upgrading from one Mac to the other, I mean, bro, in the past, that's taken me like days, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. So that's sick. And other use cases for Thunderbolt 5, if you use a lot of external displays, or a lot of external hard drives and stuff like that, obviously you're gonna see a lot of quicker speeds with that. Now, speaking of speed, everything does feel faster. The M1 Max was already super fast, loved it, barely had any issues, but this is the 4th generation of it. You see the Apple keynotes and they're like, oh, this is 1.5x faster than the M1 or 2x faster than the M1 or something like that. And it's like, that's cool. That sounds good, but it's already fast enough for my needs. But do you know what you need? you know what I'm saying? Until the new big boy on the street comes around. Especially if you edit videos, like it is noticeably lightning fast when it comes to any of the exports I've done in the past 2 days just testing it out. Now when it comes to music production, there's a bit of the boost, but I haven't really used it enough, you know what I'm saying? Most of the past 2 days have just been me making sure all the plugins are compatible, updating them, switching serials and all that stuff that's kind of a drag. But yeah, the problem for music production and these new chips and stuff is you really gotta rely on the DAWs and the plugin companies and all that kind of stuff to really make sure they're optimized for these new chips. And that's just something that they're probably always gonna be behind on. Enough talk, let's put it to the test and see how it performs. Let's pull up L.Dre Drum Kit Volume 6, my new drum kit, check it out. Throw that on there. Analog Lab and come up with a little melody real quick. Just draw it in or use some MIDI to save time, you know what I'm saying? But your boy is gonna be back on the learning key soon, bro, I promise. I don't know, let's pull out the big guns. Let's pull out Omnisphere. I kind of like that. Let's throw Lounge Lizard on that. Let's bring in something lo-fi as hell. Get a simple little bass going. Where's key bass instruments? Let's throw some RC20 on Lounge Lizard. We didn't even say anything about the buffer size. Let's put the buffer to 32, bro. Let's really push this thing, man. And let's get a little head count going. We got 1 Omnisphere, 2 Omnisphere, 2 analog, 3 analog, 4 analogs, 2 Omnispheres. I mean, there's RC20, there's guitar rig, we got ozone on the master, GoFoss. We got all these things going. We're barely at 33%. We're only at 32 samples. So something's gotta give. Before we try to abuse it, let's save it and open it up on the M1 Max and see what the CPU is doing over there. Bring it down to 32 samples as well, and let's hit play. Oh my God. So the difference is actually a little drastic. It's at 64% on there. It's double the CPU usage over here. So that's already a noticeable difference. That's awesome. Now let's start pushing it to its limit over here. Let's duplicate all these MIDI tracks, all these plugins. Barely cracking 40%. Let's do it over here. Hey, I love the M1 Max. I love it, but it's already crap in the bed. I've only duplicated it one time. It's hitting 78%. Over here, we're moving flawlessly over here. Let's quadruple it, bro. Four analog labs, 2 Omnispheres, right? So that's 4, that's 6 high intensity plugins times 4. What's 4 times 6? I knew that. I was just testing you, Siri. I was testing the new Apple Intelligence. Okay, so that's 24 high intensity plugins running on 32 samples. See what we can get. I mean, it's already shit in the bed at twice, 12 VSTs. Okay, let's see if this would even play. It's loading big time. Clearly, this thing is better than the M1 Max. I mean, it should be. It's the 4th generation, but like, let's see. We octupled it. So this is 26. This is 42. This is 42 instances of Analog Lab and Omnisphere. Okay. Okay, now it's starting to shit the bed a little. Let's go to 64 samples. See if it can play. I mean, that's the I was gonna say that's the test right there. All right, I think I've reached a final conclusion. That was crazy. No, but seriously, like, let me just start off with a quick disclaimer. What I just did was some extra stuff that most people aren't doing, all right? Most people aren't running like 60 Omnispheres at once. And the M1 Max is a really good laptop. Like I said, I've been using it for the past 3 years and it's been great. The only issues I have with it are the usual stuff. Editing 4K video renders takes a bit. It's gonna take some time and that's normal. But with this, takes way less time to render the same thing. Same thing with Ableton. I mean, come on, bro. If I'm gonna have 4 Analog Labs, 4 Omnispheres, and Ozone running on the master, all that stuff at the same time, I'm gonna expect it to maybe get a little choppy, especially at 32 on the buffer, bro. 32 samples on the buffer, doing all that is next level. And that says something about this. That is like really, 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 really good performance. I wasn't expecting it to be that drastic, honestly. I didn't know it was gonna be double the speeds on here. I didn't know the M1 Max was gonna be using double the CPU percentage. Maybe it could have something to do with the fact that this one is running 128 gigs of RAM versus 64 gigs of RAM. Maybe that plays a part. With all that being said, the M4 Max is definitely a solid upgrade from the M1 Max, and I'm gonna just assume that any other M1s and below, this is gonna be a solid upgrade. And it'll pretty much just be you matching what you have. If you have an M1 Pro, get the equivalent M4 Pro. But based on what I just showed you, it's a solid upgrade. And would I have known it was this good of an upgrade if I didn't try it? No. I probably would have been satisfied with my M1 Max for another year or two until they did a whole new redesign or something like that. But now that I do have this, I'm gonna save time on lagging and loading times that cumulatively add up, you know what I'm saying? Definitely go watch some more in-detail reviews on it and make an educated decision. But if you're someone like me who had a pretty much maxed out M1 Max, I can confidently tell you that this is a good upgrade and it is what it is. Now, I do have an interesting idea. Since the M4s are so good and so powerful and all that kind of stuff, I'm wondering, is the base Mac Mini good enough for music production? It's at 16 gigabytes of RAM now, and it's only $599. So maybe that'll be my next video. Let me know if you want to see that, because that is like the steal of a century. That's it. I'm L.Dre. Hope you enjoyed it. Catch you in the next video. Peace.